Dear Patriots, before the news starts, please subscribe to our patriotic channel by clicking the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up to this video. Don't forget to leave your opinion below in the comments section. Share the news on Facebook and Twitter so your friends see it. Thank you.
The big challenge for Cohn's successor staying close to Trump. White House economic advisor Gary Cohn has one more thing he wants to do before he leaves his post: help President Donald Trump pick his successor. Behind the scenes, one candidate Cohn is pushing is his Deputy Director of Domestic Policy, Shahira Knight, a former Hill staffer and ex-lobbyist, to replace him as Director of the National Economic Council, according to two people familiar with the discussions. As the NEC's resident tax expert, she was integral to working with lawmakers to develop the historic tax legislation and has allies throughout the Hill and downtown. One Republican lobbyist said she has the inside track if she wants it. Knight did not respond to a request for comment. Whoever inherits the job faces the challenge of retaining the same level of influence as Cohn did. The former Goldman Sachs banker and New York Democrat turned the non-Senate confirmed slot into a powerhouse position and quickly became a killer in Trump parlance, who the president largely viewed as a peer. Toward the top of the shortlist is also Larry Kudlow, a former associate director for economics and planning in the Office of Management and Budget under President Ronald Reagan and now a CNBC pundit and informal advisor to the president. He also keeps close ties to Cohn. But Kudlow has openly rejected Trump's tariffs push, leading some to say he'll never get the job. The new director will have to fight to ensure the roughly 30-person NEC team stays in the policy-making loop in a non-traditional White House where Trump often prefers to make decisions solo. Gary had the ability to bond with the president in a special way, said Paul Winfrey, Trump's former deputy director of the Domestic Policy Council, now director of the Rowe Institute for Economic Policy Studies at the Heritage Foundation. The president respected Gary's past life and present. They are both rich guys from New York. Winfrey added, Gary was also able to bring a certain credibility to the policy discussions based on his life. He could say, Mr. President, I know this works because I've seen it work with my own eyes. And the president believed him because Gary had clearly made a livelihood practicing what he preached. I suspect that a similar personality would have similar influence. Cohn was also able to amass power early on by assembling a powerful group of experienced policy experts that included longtime Washington wonks and operatives, at a time when other agencies were understaffed while waiting for nominees to be confirmed. But this week's fight over tariffs exposed the limits of Cohn's influence. Whoever succeeds him will have to contend with the ascendance of White House aides like Stephen Miller and Peter Navarro, who favor tighter immigration restrictions and more protectionist trade measures, anathema to economists, many business executives and Wall Street. The greatest challenge someone in this White House faces, whether it is Gary or his successor, is that it's hard to have a thoughtful policy process that sees several steps down the road, if you do not have a president willing to engage, said Gene Sperling, NEC director under Presidents Clinton and Obama. What you saw last week was a more extreme version of policy guerrilla warfare. At least 3 NEC staffers are considering leaving the White House within the next few months, according to 3 people with close White House ties. More could follow depending on Cohn's successor. Many NEC staffers have privately told friends and associates they would quit if Navarro, the White House's resident trade hawk, got the job, a possibility that one senior administration official called a long shot. Another senior administration official said of Navarro getting the NEC job, no chance. Navarro, however, is said to want the position. He is well liked by Trump because he often tells the president what the president already believes, said Winfrey, the former administration official. There's also a sense among some administration officials that the White House has yet to hit on a candidate with enough gravitas needed to lead the NEC in the Trump era and must dig deeper for candidates. At a White House briefing on Wednesday, Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders declined to comment on prospective candidates. I'm not going to get into any naming or list, but I can tell you that the president has a number of people under consideration, and he's going to take his time making that decision, she said. Kudlow knows Trump well from advising his team on economics during the 2016 campaign and helping to draft an early iteration of the president's tax plan. As Republicans advanced their tax legislation on Capitol Hill this fall, Kudlow played a key role in quietly lobbying Republican lawmakers through dinners and private meetings on the need for a lower corporate tax rate and move to a different type of international tax system. That work helped him build up goodwill throughout Washington, as Kudlow became closely associated with the legislative highlight of Trump's first year. Now the problem for Kudlow is that he firmly believes in free markets and has been publicly critical of tariffs on steel and aluminum, just as Trump is set to impose them with exemptions for certain countries. Kudlow declined to comment on speculation about the NEC job. About his disagreements with Trump, Kudlow said, "I'm not opposed to all tariffs. I don't know if people know that. I just happen to be opposed to this particular action." Other names in the mix include OMB Director Mick Mulvaney and the head of the Council of Economic Advisers Kevin Hassett. Few in the administration want to move either men from their current posts, since they are widely viewed as competent and even-keeled. Other names mentioned include Robert Steele, an investment banker and former Goldman Sachs executive who served in the Treasury Department under President George W. Bush. It's not clear if Steele would be interested in the job. Press reports have also mentioned former Federal Reserve Governor Kevin Warsh, but Warsh is said by those who know him to not be interested in the position. Cohn is expected to advise the president on the pick and help with the transition, with input from cabinet members such as Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, other economic advisers, and Trump's unofficial kitchen cabinet of longtime friends, real estate developers and businessmen. But White House officials like to remind outsiders that the president is surrounded by smart, capable aides, but that none of them, no matter how competent they seem, are as important to the American public as the president himself. At the end of the day, the American people voted overwhelmingly for President Donald J. Trump, Sanders said. They voted for his policies, his agenda, and for him to be the ultimate decision maker. Trump officials tell Idaho it can't dump Obamacare. The Trump administration to date threw cold water on Idaho's plan to ignore key Obamacare requirements, telling the red state that it must follow the healthcare law. Idaho was moving to let insurers offer plans that don't meet the Affordable Care Act's robust coverage rules, including protections for pre-existing conditions and mandated benefits, in a bid to expand the availability of cheaper health plans. The Idaho plan has sparked considerable interest from other red states that have long opposed Obamacare. But Trump administration health officials, who've worked to unwind Obamacare through regulation and have encouraged states to pursue alternative coverage options, said that they ultimately had to make sure the law is enforced while it's on the books. CMS is committed to working with states to give them as much flexibility as permissible under the law to provide their citizens the best possible access to health care. However, the Affordable Care Act remains the law, read a statement from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, which oversees the law's insurance marketplaces. The decision comes after newly installed Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar faced pressure for weeks from patient groups and other insurers to reject the Idaho plan. The groups argued it would destabilize the state's insurance marketplace and undermine key protections for people with serious medical conditions. Azar, who served as HHS top lawyer during the George W. Bush administration, had demurred for weeks on whether he would let the proposal move ahead. Under Obamacare, states are the primary enforcers of the law's private insurance rules, but the federal government is required to step in if a state chooses to not do so. Many legal experts saw the Idaho plan as a clear violation of the law that HHS, despite its opposition to Obamacare, couldn't allow. Blue Cross of Idaho 3 weeks ago introduced 5 health plans under the proposed coverage scheme that it hoped to begin selling next month. State officials and Blue Cross argued that their proposal passes legal muster, contending that Idaho would still be substantially enforcing the 2010 healthcare law and HHS didn't need to step in. Idaho officials said they heard from dozens of states about their proposal, but no other states have put forward a similar plan yet. Federal health officials instead encouraged Idaho to take up the administration's recent move to expand the availability of short-term, limited-duration plans. These plans are exempt from many of Obamacare's coverage rules, but critics deride them as junk insurance that cherry-pick healthy customers and offer extremely limited coverage. The administration proposed regulation to expand these plans, but it is still awaiting public feedback before moving ahead. Idaho officials have also suggested the short-term plans weren't an acceptable substitute for the state's proposal. "I don't know that we see that as being a real good avenue for us," Idaho Insurance Director Dean Cameron said in an interview last week. "What we're trying to do is improve the market." Idaho Governor Butch Otter's office declined comment Thursday evening. Democrats cheered the Trump administration's decision, but they still criticized other actions HHS has taken in recent months to weaken the law. Make no mistake, however, while this is the right decision, the administration continues its many efforts to undermine the law and chip away at its protections, including by encouraging Idaho to sell junk plans in another way, said Representative Frank Pallone of New Jersey, the top Democrat on the House Energy and Commerce Committee.